Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Women's Soccer Show. I'm Sarah.
And I'm Amy.
Allie was supposed to be back after 2 weeks, but they are sick. Amy was kind enough to jump in for a third week in a row, and we've got, once again, a ton to discuss. We're going to jump right into it with some big news, I guess. But before we get into the football of it, the NWSL, the European transfer, everything we're going to chat about today, you met the one and only Georgia Stanway. That's all I know. I get to hear this story for the first time right now with all of the listeners. So what happened?
Yeah, I met the one and only Stanners. She was in New York doing an event doing many events for Bayern Munich. And she'd agreed to do an America Scores event with some children in Washington Heights. And it was basically just some like 7v7 mini games. But she was great. She was really into it. She played with the kids in the games, got them hyped. Yeah, it was just really nice to see her, giving back to the community and being really engaged in it. And then towards the end, she came over and she talked to me and my group of friends who I was with, who were lucky to be invited to the event. And she was fantastic, just a top person. Spent 20 minutes talking to us, probably a little bit more, just about why she was here, and she wants to do some more events. Basically wants to set up a foundation to give back to community and travel. Yeah, she was really, really invested in it. She'd done a previous event in the day with another club and this cool initiative with Design FC where the kids get to design these shirts, which I thought was also pretty cool too.
That's super cool, like their own soccer shirts.
Yeah, it was basically this own jersey that they'd all come together and collaborated and designed on it. She also said that they had some deep and meaningful conversation during the design. So, yeah, that was quite rare to see the kids getting involved in that type of environment where they're free to talk and express themselves and design the shirts as well.
Warms my heart when I hear stories like that about these athletes just being like top people.
Yeah, top player, top person. The funniest thing she said was, I said, I went to all the Euros games and all the England games. And she said, did you enjoy it? I just kind of was like, of course I effing enjoyed it. It was like the best time of my life. And everybody sort of laughed. It was.
I figured you were going to say not until we won. And then I really enjoyed it.
No, I think I would have really enjoyed it even if we hadn't won, just for the environment and the exposure that it brought to women's game.
It was special.
Yeah, it was very special. And it made it, 1,000 times better, the fact that England won it. But
that's such a player question, though, to be like, did you enjoy it? Like, I'm so sorry you put you through so much stress, but we did it.
Yeah, like I traveled all around England watching these games, and I got to go to Wembley and watch my nation win a major European championship, a major trophy for the first time in my lifetime, men or women. So of course I enjoyed it, and I really enjoyed talking to Georgia Stanway. And if any of you ever get to meet Georgia Stanway, she is a top person and she will have a lot of time for you. And I can't speak more highly of her. She did say that she was very happy in Munich. And I also asked her if she would, when she comes back to New York, bring her tattoo gun and give me a tattoo. And she said, what are the licensing laws in New York? And I said, it don't matter, just give me a tattoo. No one's going to tell on you. So I think that would be quite cool.
My apartment and give me a tattoo.
Yeah, it'd be quite cool to get a tattoo from Georgia Stanway.
That would be so cool. I didn't even know that was a thing that she had or did. That's hilarious.
Yeah. So top day. I really enjoyed myself, and I'm really thankful for America Scores for inviting me along to their event.
America Scores is a great organization. If you don't know about it and you're listening, before we move on, this is, I guess, a great way to wrap this up.
Well, America Scores is just a volunteer organization that exists all around the US, and they host many free events for youth, underprivileged youth in areas of low income, no income. And they put on events to have them participate in sport and soccer mainly, so that they have the opportunities.
Before we get onto the games of the NWSL, because we're kicking it off with the NWSL, and then don't worry, we're going to head over to Europe for some Europe transfer news. But first, NWSL, and we got to kick it off with, we're going to call it a news segment. We've got some topics to discuss, and we can't get into the games without talking about basically just what happened with the Cascadia rivalry in CBS. So for those of you who don't know, CBS They did us dirty this past weekend. If you don't know, CBS are the original media partner of the NWSL, but with this new media deal that is in effect this year for the first time, they have fewer games. They're still going to host the championship, most likely, but they've had fewer games because other games are on ION, ESPN, Amazon Prime, or NWSL Plus. And after this past weekend, basically fans are being just telling the NWSL that they don't want CBS in the next media deal. And I kind of understand it. Here's what happened. Saturday was the Cascadia rivalry, which is Seattle versus Portland, and Seattle was hosting Portland. This is not arguably, this is without a doubt the biggest rivalry in the entire league. Everybody, including myself, tried to log on to Paramount Plus, which is owned by CBS, to watch the game. And when you open it, it was women's US Open. In other words, golf, not tennis. I will say, I'm glad it was women's. Let's just put that out there. But that's besides the point here.
Silver lining.
So basically, it was a long story. We're going to make a long story short. NWSL starts making announcements that, oh, we're so sorry. The US Open golf is on. The game is now going to be on CBSSports.com. So everybody, including myself, gets on their little computer, goes to CBSSports.com. Guess what? It's not there. It's either golf or it's some kind of NFL. It doesn't matter. It took them the entirety of the first half of this game to figure out how to get this game on a channel or a website or just something where it could be watched. So everybody who was trying to tune in to Seattle versus Portland only saw the second half of the game. And I just want to say, everybody out there is blaming the NWSL. A lot of people were tweeting like, hey, why don't you just put it on NWSL Plus? That's not how this works. This is a bad look for CBS. The NWSL doesn't have that much control, unfortunately. They didn't have the control to like take it back from CBS when it's already part of a larger media deal that this is a game that CBS gets. They didn't have the ability to take it back and put it on NWSL Plus. So this is a CBS issue. And I mean, this is partly why we're so glad the new media deal is here, is because for some reason, CBS has made it so difficult. And then to pile on Sunday, NWSL had to tweet that Bay FC versus Utah game was going to be delayed because of a CFL game, American football game. It ended up only being like 10 to 15 minutes. So it really didn't make a big big difference. But just one after the other, not a good look.
CFL, what is that even? Is that like Canadian Football League?
I honestly don't even know. I think it must be Canadian Football League. Yeah.
That's embarrassing.
So embarrassing. I mean, the fact that there was nowhere to even put the Seattle versus Portland game. I prefer the solution of pushing the start time back, the kickoff back 10 minutes like they did for the Bay FC versus Utah game. But you can't do that when it's golf. You don't know when golf is going to be over. The fact that there was no second option, the fact that we all only got to watch the second half, there's not too much to say about it other than it's a really bad look for CBS. I would say of the newer media partners, or of all of the media partners in this new deal, I think CBS really does have like the worst comprehensive coverage. So
yeah, I agree.
Understand what people are saying, that they don't understand why CBS is still in this deal. If they seem to be kind of behind the times in terms of how they're covering the game. If you look at the quality of production of ESPN or Amazon Prime or what they're putting up, it kind of pales, or CBS kind of pales in comparison. All right, before we move on, we also have to talk about news that broke last week, reports out of Chicago. Funny that this came on the heels because last week, Amy, we talked all about Chicago because they just played at Wrigley. We were trying to figure out where they should be playing because we didn't love the idea of SeatGeek outside the city, so far outside the city of Chicago. And then, so I believe we released that on Wednesday, and on Thursday, reports from many, many sources, including ESPN, surfaced that the Red Stars were scheduled to host San Diego Wave on September 21st at SeatGeek Stadium, where they host all of their games. But instead, SeatGeek is set to host a 3-day music festival called Riot Fest from the 20th to the 22nd. So the Red Stars now have to find a new stadium for that date for the Wave game on September 21st. Now, when it was being reported, it really seemed that this was all SeatGeek's issue, that they basically were like, hey, sorry, Red Stars, this is going to give us more money, which honestly, it will. 3-day festival will give you a lot more money than one 90-minute long soccer game. That's very fair and very true. But it seems like that's not even what happened. Later that same day, the village of Bridgeview, which is where SeatGeek is, released a statement claiming that the Red Stars were informed of the possible Riot Fest conflict in April and failed to respond. And that's where we are right now. This is a bad look by the Red Stars now.
Yeah, it's definitely on the Red Stars. If they've been given notice since April and haven't responded to that or made any arrangements to put this game somewhere else, I mean, they could go back to Wrigley. It was a pretty good event, I would say. But when does baseball season start?
I was going to say they were going to have to. Baseball season is in full force right now. In September, they're just going to have to hope that the Cubs aren't at Wrigley.
Yeah, or then they're looking at the bigger football stadium to host. I don't know if that's going to be a
venue
or a college stadium is the next, which will kind of be similar to what we have going on in North Carolina at Wake Med Soccer.
But also college soccer's in full swing in September as well. So that might not even be,
If Chicago offers money to a college, they might not turn that down. You know, I think that if they can rearrange, because college soccer, you can rearrange fixtures quite quickly, especially if they're doing it now, they'll rearrange it. But yeah, they're going to scramble, and it's disappointing for their fans. There's a lot of these stories seem to be more and more prominent, and I don't know why, because why are we still having to fight these things? We've seen that women's sport brings in people, it brings in revenue, it brings the fans in. Why are we still treating it like second-class citizen? I just got an email from the New York Liberty today, and this is off subject, but that they're moving the Commissioner Cup final to Long Island. We play in Brooklyn because the NBA draft takes place the day after the final. Yeah. So they have sent us a whole email about we'll provide you with free limited transportation, first come, first served basis from Brooklyn to Long Island. But
for those of you who don't know, that is a long journey. That's a long journey for a game. And I mean, you say it's off topic, but it's kind of on topic because I feel like I always talk about the WNBA as it kind of relates to the WSL in the way that the WNBA is always going to be in the shadow of the NBA. The NBA is like the overarching owner, hence why W got kicked out so the NBA could have its moment. Same thing with WSL, always going to be in the shadow of the Premier League. And they're never going to be able to feel like they're their own entity. Now, the benefit of being independent is that things like that don't happen to you. But if things like that are happening to you for festivals, then what really is the benefit there? That gets a little muddled. I do find a little bit of humor in the fact that, for example, Twitter exploded in rage of just we have been wronged, everybody. Nobody puts women's sports first. And then when it came out that it was probably the Red Stars' fault, everybody was kind of like, ooh, that was a left turn we didn't expect. Okay, we retract the rage. We're so sorry. Now we're mad at the Red Stars.
Backtrack quickly. Backtrack.
Yeah. We're still mad just at the Red Stars. At the end of the day, just to finish this before we move on, I do feel like you almost have to make light of it because we can't sit here for the 100th time and say the same thing that we've said over and over and over again about how women's sports needs to be taken seriously and how you have to invest in it. And that's how you're going to see the return. You're not going to see a return by moving a game to a stadium that nobody's been to, nobody wants to go to, nobody wants to venture to a new stadium. You're not excited to check out the stadiums on Long Island.
I'm
no
definitely
offense,
not.
Long Island, but I'm not even getting into that whole Brooklyn, Long Island. Moving forward.
I think that's a good call.
Okay.
Did you hear about the sorry, just going back to this kind of piggybacking on it, but did you hear about the club in England that voted to disband all of its youth, women's and girls teams?
What? No.
Yeah, it's just a whole big thing that happened last week. And these men on the board voted to get rid of all of the women's programs from U9 up to women's programs, just get rid of it. And
for what reason? It was too expensive?
Just get rid of it. There was no reason given. And then professional footballers, women's professional footballers also were coming out and saying, what are we doing? We're past this. We're not doing this. And so the board, I think all of the board members except for one stepped down. And then the board member that was still left in place was no, we're going to re-energize our women's programs and girls programs. We're not going to get rid of them anymore. So yeah, we're still dealing with a lot of shit.
I guess I'll say, just as always, we bring this up because it needs to be known. It's important for these kind of things to not be swept under the rug because this happens all the time. It's happening at the professional level. It's happening everywhere, like you just said, with the club in England that tried to cut all of girls' funding, period, the end, from bottom to top. It has to be talked about, and it's not necessarily, we're not bringing it up just to get to harp on the Red Stars or sound like broken records saying the same thing over and over again, but it needs to be shared and it needs to see the light of day, and that's why we bring it up. So now let's get to the games. Let's get to the fun stuff. The game of the week, it was up for debate, but I think what we've landed on is, in fact, it had to be the game of the week because there were exciting moments in other games, but at the end of the day, Friday night, Kansas City, in what has become a fortress, hosting the Chicago Red Stars. Kansas City is, of course, one of the two undefeated teams along with Orlando. Surprisingly, a lot of people said that they thought Chicago could take down KC, and they almost did. Ended in a 2-2 draw. It was almost Kansas City's, but the one and only Sam Staub came through at the very last minute for Chicago. We're going to get into this game. It was an interesting one. A lot of momentum swings, but before we do, as I mentioned, Kansas City, one of two undefeated teams, and this is just our undefeated teams tracker here. Picture a little undefeated teams tracker going across the bottom, like on ESPN or something. There are only 2 games left for each team. Kansas City only has 2 more games, and Orlando only has 2 more games before they are then scheduled to meet up. So the two of them meeting as both undefeated teams is becoming more and more likely. Their meeting is scheduled for July 5th. That is the last weekend of NWSL before they break for the Olympics. So that could be huge. All right, let's get into it because this was an interesting game because Chicago struck first in the first 5 minutes. Chicago in and of itself obviously deserves a conversation. We could spend, honestly, all 40 minutes just talking about Chicago, but we're going to try to not do that for everybody's benefit, including ours. Mal Swanson struck first with a goal in the first 5 minutes, I want to say. Listen, I mean, it goes without being said, but it just also needs to be said. Mal Swanson is such a special player, and it makes it slightly even more special that she's come back from her injury, and she's come back with a certain swag that I just don't think she had before she got injured. When you look at her on the U.S. women's national team or Chicago before that injury, she was carrying a lot. Like, she was carrying the teams on her back. She was scoring a lot. Her back was hurting, but it looked heavy. Like, how she carried it, it looked like it was a load for her to carry, and she looked tired from doing it. And she doesn't. It looks light. Like, the way she carries it now, it looks light in the way she carries it. I don't know if that does that make sense, Amy? I'm trying to explain it as best I can, but she looks like she's thriving, and I think, it doesn't look like a burden to carry.
I think she's enjoying the responsibility because when you get injured and you get injured significantly, it can either galvanize you or destroy you. And I think with Swanson, we're seeing it's like galvanized her and made her just more determined. And the responsibility isn't a weight. She sees it as a privilege, and she's, it can feel like a weight if you're not performing, it feels like a weight. So she's taking that leadership, onus, and she's performing well. And there are all the facets are clicking. And the first goal that she scored was really nicely taken goal. The ball fed into her, and then the first touch took the defender out of the game. Elizabeth Ball, she had no chance of getting the ball after that because Swanson's pace just took her past her. And the finish, it was a little bit, it was a good finish. It was a little bit lucky because it kind of just went between Franch's leg and her arm. And I think Franch would want that one back if she could get it back, but I take nothing away from the finish. It was a very good finish.
Chicago goes up in the first 5 minutes with that goal. And from there on out, it's fully Kansas City's game. Like, it's 1-0 Chicago still at halftime, but the first half scoreline was more shocking than if you were watching the actual game. I never actually felt like Kansas City were down 1-0 the whole game for multiple reasons. First, they fully dominated possession. They fully dominated the game. They had most of the opportunities. I'll give credit where credit is due to Chicago that they had some counters, but we'll come on to that. But when you look at Kansas City, the other reason is that this is a team that can score, and they were at home, and it really did only feel like a matter of time until they were going to score. They scored 33 goals on the season across 13 games. That's the most across this entire league. A 1-0 lead for Chicago simply didn't feel like a winning scoreline to them, for me at least. Watching this game, it never truly felt like Kansas City was down.
No, and they were constantly free flow and forward attacks. And with their front line, Chewinga is so threatening with the pace, the pure pace, and just the ability to get shots off. She got a lot of shots off in the first half. Some of them went wide. She should have scored probably. She had a lot of opportunities. We got to give credit to Nair. She made a couple of good saves too in that first half period.
Big time.
Yeah, and for me,
it was an onslaught for Nair. Yeah. Nair kept Chicago in the game in that first half.
Well, for me also with Chewinga, like, I'm not concerned when she misses opportunities because I know that she's just going to get more, and this is what's happening. Chewinga is getting the XG for Chewinga was off the charts in this game, and I would bet that she's going to get a lot more chances in games as well throughout the season, and she's going to be up there as threatening for the Golden Boot race. Again, like I'm going to agree with what you said. There was no point where I thought, Casey's not going to come back. They were going to come back. It was just a matter of time and when they were going to score. And unfortunately for Naya, you have to say that Casey's first goal was her fault. But the save she made in the first half,
I knew you were going to say that.
It was her fault. She patted the ball down in the middle of the 6-yard box.
I wrote down, the goal was a mistake by Nair, but whatever, she was keeping them in the game anyways. That's verbatim what I wrote down. you can't do it all, and she's done a lot for them, and she was keeping them in the game. So I have a hard time. Obviously, like at a certain point, it's subjective. Sometimes you need to punch the ball out, but also these are human beings on the field, and at a certain point, I just kind of weigh cost benefit for everything she was doing for them. That one mistake resulting in a goal was such a bummer. I wasn't even going to call that out.
Well, Bia still had a lot of work to do because she still had to spin and shoot at the same time. And Nair's defenders could have done a little bit more of a solid job in stopping that because she really only had one option, and that was to spin and shoot first time. So you've got to get a block on it, got to get a body closer to her and help your goalkeeper because your goalkeeper's bailed you out so many times in the first half. So with the early goal in the second half, it really set the tempo for Kansas City to then go on and win it. And that's what we thought was going to happen. And
Big time. When that equalizer went in, the onslaught just continued. And you would think that, at least in the flow of a soccer game, if a team like Chicago that is below Kansas City in the table, it's had a worse season overall, goes up 1-0, and then Kansas City gets the equalizer, you think Chicago has to open it back up again. They have to start countering. They have to start going they have to go forward a little bit more. And that's not what happened. They could not get anything going. And then Chewinga scored that go-ahead goal. And it truly did feel like it was over because we had seen really nothing promising from Chicago that entire second half.
Chewinga's finish was sublime and the hardest chance she had of the day. But she converted that one, and it was very, very nice. Nicely taken goal. Clean strike, low and hard into the corner, no chance for Nair. And deservedly, Kansas City is 2-1 up. And like you said, how does Chicago then get back into this game? And we're looking probably at the most hopeful thing they can try and do is get a draw here. And, Casey will go back and they'll rue their chances that they missed in the first half because they had a lot. And they didn't put the game to bed. And in the 89th minute, Starb comes up big from a corner. Heads the ball down.
The 90th, yeah.
Yeah. Again, I'm going to criticize the goalkeeper. I think AD France should do better on this one. It does take a quick bounce in front of her, but a goalkeeper of her caliber, I think she should save it. And she does seem disappointed with herself after the goal.
This is funny, Amy, because you're a goalkeeper. You're going to criticize the goalkeeper. I'm a field player by trade. And to be honest, I fully blame the field players for that goal being created because Kansas City got lazy in those last couple of minutes. It was a lazy, sloppy clearance it could have been a counter for Kansas City. And instead, I don't remember who was on the ball, but just really cleared it back to, I think it was Milazzo, right back to a Chicago left back. And then Chicago came right back, earned that corner kick, earned another corner kick, and that's when the goal was scored. If you're not lazy like that, it was lazy defending on the corner kick. It was just lazy. But that is not to take anything away from Sam Staub, because Sam Staub continues to make her case for the Olympic roster. And I made a big swing before the 2 friendlies that the U.S. just played. When Sam Staub got called up, I said, I think she will be and should be on this Olympic roster. And I think she just continues to prove herself.
I mean, who else would you take instead of her? I know she's probably not going to be your starting centre-back choice, because I think it's Germer and Davidson at this point. But who else do you take instead of her? Because there's nobody else really screaming and making a claim for it like she is at this point, and is in form. You have to pick people on form too. You can't just pick it on like, national team, they've played for the national team for 10 years or 15 years or whatever the case may be, on like sentimental nonsense. Like managers do that. You have to pick it on form, and on form, Sam Staub deserves to go. And I can't see how she doesn't go at this stage unless she gets injured, and touch wood, she doesn't.
Casey Kruger and Emily Sonnet make cases for themselves also because of their versatility, though. I mean, listen, for those of you listening, actually, we're doing 2 Patreons this week. We're going to do U.S. Women's National Team predictions for the roster for the Olympics, and we're also going to do a full Olympics groups episode. That's with this one right here, Amy. So head over, check that out, because this was a fun tangent. And if you want to hear more about that, head on over to the Patreon. But back to this game.
Yes, although I'm criticising AD France for what possibly could have been a save, defenders have to defend the corner, but Sam Staub wanted it more, and it was a good header. We'll give her credit for the header. And on the balance of play, Chicago didn't really deserve a draw, but they fought for it. They showed grit, determination, and a never say die attitude, which we didn't see in their last home game, which they lost. We kind of criticised them a little bit for being a little bit flaccid and not really doing much up front. It was more of a Route 1 style of football. But this will give them confidence. Going to KC and getting a draw is no mean feat. So hopefully they can, continue to build on this. And the manager there, we have this in our notes, but Lorne Donaldson I mentioned him last week, doing a great job. Yeah. And he was a standout in the World Cup when he was managing Jamaica because of what Jamaica did. Nobody expected them to knock Brazil out of the group stages of the World Cup, but they did. So for him to come into this job and continue to do a similar sort of tactical job, progressing this team around Mal Swanson, among others, I'm just impressed by him.
Let's go around the world. Around the world, around the world. To the USL Super League, which will begin on Saturday, August 17th. If you missed our episode with our interview with the commissioner, Amanda Vandervoort, you should go have a listen and learn everything you need to know. We will also talk more about it as it approaches, though. The USL Super League is a brand new Division I league in the United States and will play its league in alignment more with international schedules than we see the NWSL doing now. This means that it will align closer to the European schedule. And as we mentioned last week, Arsenal and Chelsea women are coming to the United States. Chelsea will play Gotham FC, and Arsenal are set to play the Washington Spirit. They'll also face each other in Washington, D.C. These games will be on August 18th and 25th. And finally, to the Summer Cup, also mentioned on last week's episode, but it's worth mentioning again. The NWSL and La Liga MX Femenil announced back in March that all 14 NWSL teams and 6 La Liga MX teams will compete in games from July 19th to August 2nd during the Olympic break. This isn't new news, but it certainly is approaching. So let's get ready.
Have you checked out Total Football Analysis yet? TotalFootballAnalysis.com provides researched analysis on loads of football, including the women's game. Want all the stats in one place instead of drowning in a mountain of tabs? Want to explore key matchups and the tactics from both teams? Total Football Analysis provides the stats and analysis to help you learn more about the beautiful game. We have a special discount for listeners of the Women's Soccer Show. At checkout, type WOSO10 to get a full year for just €10. That's €40 of the yearly subscription. Head over to TotalFootballAnalysis.com and type WOSO10 at checkout.
Over to Europe. We're going to take a break from the NWSL because we're headed over to Europe because there's a lot to talk about. We're not in season right now in Europe, but that does not mean that we have nothing to talk about. In fact, we have quite a bit to talk about because massive transfer news has started to slowly roll out of multiple clubs. And some of these that we're about to talk about are fully confirmed. Some of them are rumored. So we'll start off. I mean, there's a lot. Maybe we'll just start off with the big ones because I don't want to bury the lead here, because Kira Walsh, Bonmatí, Lucy Bronze, and of course, Caldente have been named as players that could potentially all be leaving Barcelona this offseason, all for different clubs. Let's start with Kira Walsh, because that's the one I most recently read about. Kira Walsh is rumored to potentially be going to Arsenal.
If there was a reverse of a glow up, it would be this.
Says the United fan.
No, seriously.
How is that the reverse of a glow up?
How is it not? You're going to go from
well, at least
European
she'd be playing
champion,
in Champions League still.
You'll go from being a European champion to winning 4 trophies at Barcelona's at Arsenal, who won the Continental Cup. I mean, I don't know what the rationale is for Kira Walsh to leave Barcelona. And this is just a rumor, and there is a lot of fire around this rumor, and I don't know if there's a deal done already, because where there's smoke, there's fire, and I don't know. I think if Arsenal get Walsh, and they've got Mariona Caldente, because she's signed already. That's done. She's left Barcelona. She said her goodbyes. So that will be a scary proposition for the rest of the league to deal with Arsenal. I don't know if Jonas can manage these players, though. I'm a little bit concerned about that. Are you?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. I mean, Vivian Miedema just left, and obviously it's not confirmed, but it very much seemed like there was some headbutting and that Jonas really couldn't manage a superstar in Vivian Miedema. But I don't know. I mean, Kira Walsh is very well documented, very good friends with Leah Williamson. It would be, I think, a very easy thing for her to slot into Arsenal with so many England internationals there. I don't think it's that hard. So it maybe isn't even something for Jonas to have to manage. Now, when it comes to Caldente, that's a different story. I see that almost as how Gareth Taylor had a hard time managing Rose Lavelle. It's like he just didn't know what to do with her. Perhaps we might see that with Jonas and Caldente. But she seemed very keen to leave Barcelona, and she's very quickly signed with Arsenal. So I'm sure, obviously, she thinks something's going to work out very well. As a Arsenal supporter, I'm super happy to see this. I mean, as Chelsea seem to be kind of on their way, perhaps falling down the table, at least I'll just say vulnerable, Arsenal are, to make it a pun, building their arsenal.
Yeah, I think it's exciting for Arsenal, definitely. Walsh, I don't know. I'm a fan of also England internationals playing abroad and getting experience abroad, playing with other players, playing different styles of football, and not becoming predictable. So, I mean, obviously, as a Man United fan, I don't want her to go to Arsenal. And as an England fan, I'm a little bit indifferent about her coming back to the WSL. Staying at Barcelona is a better move for her. There's no reason why she shouldn't stay at Barcelona, in my opinion.
What's being rumored is that it's more personal, where she just misses being home and around people and around family and in a place where she speaks the language. And at a certain point, that just is going to outweigh playing good football. And I guess at this point, it kind of has.
Well, if you don't learn the language also, that's a problem. So I don't know if she's just can't get hold of the language, or is not trying to learn the language.
Some people are better with languages than others, Amy, okay?
All right, well...
All right, well, this is a good way for us to talk about Lucy Bronze, because this is one who seemed very settled in Spain, and I was very surprised to see her name on a list of players being rumored to want to leave Barcelona.
I'm not totally surprised. She's aging now, and I think coming back to England makes sense for her. She had all of her family's in England. I think if you're just going to see out your last footballing years, you would see it out in England. That makes sense to me, more so than Walsh. I believe she's in a relationship with Anna Batlier, though, so I don't know how that's going to work.
You keep bringing up the rumored relationships, Amy.
I know, sorry. Yeah, I mean, I think she is. It's quite evident from publicity that we're seeing, but again, this is just a rumor. I can't back it up. There's no evidence, but just the evidence that I see on posts and social media. But
yeah, you said before this that we're not sure if this is even true. Just her contract is over, and there's no team that's actually being floated around that. City again.
City's being floated again, and this would be I believe a third spell at Manchester City. So she obviously feels comfortable there. Again, somebody who I'd love to see at Man United, but again, we're not a club of ambition, so she wouldn't want to go there, sadly, for me. But the biggest one of all of these is Aitana Bonmatí to Chelsea for $3 million.
I mean,
that would be insane.
I'd say Lucy Bronze was the most surprising. Perhaps this one was. If you are the Ballon d'Or winner, you are the top of the top. You're the best player on the Champions League winning side. You are Bonmatí. Why are you going to Chelsea as Emma Hayes is on her way out?
I don't understand the rationale unless she has some sort of previous relationship with Sonia Bonpastor and that she feels comfortable with her as a coach. But I don't think she has any relationship with her from what her history suggests. She's been at Barcelona for her whole entire life.
Turn it on its head then and say, kind of in the same vein that you were saying, you love when England internationals go and play abroad. Bonmatí has only ever played in Spain, and perhaps this could be a good move for her as a young player. I mean, when you climb to the mountaintop and you reach the peak of being the best player on Barcelona, where is there really to go from there? Perhaps she just wants another challenge, and this is a different challenge.
Well, I could see the rationale for both Walsh and Bonmatí leaving La Liga Femenina because competition there is terrible. The Barcelona winning games by a canter, like 5, 8, 10, 12-0. There's no competition in Spain. So from that aspect, I understand you want to come to WSL, have a bit more of a competitive league, which it definitely is more competitive than La Liga. So from that aspect, yes, I understand it. And Bonmatí will bring a new culture of football to the WSL. I think that she will light up the WSL and make the players around her better and make Chelsea much better as a football team. They'll be the team that people will want to watch because of her, and also Sam Kerr signing a new contract till 2026.
Hey, wouldn't you love to see Chelsea versus Arsenal, and you've got Bonmatí against Walsh in the midfield battling it out?
Yeah, that'd be fun, and
that would be fun.
Caldente in there too.
Of course, I can't forget Caldente. I'm so sorry.
Well, yeah, you can't forget Caldente because Walsh hasn't signed anything yet, and Caldente's definitely someone who's put pen to paper. So I will get excited about Caldente now because she's there and it's happening.
I am. All right, before we talk about United, because United is once again losing
shambles.
Everything. Yes.
Shambles.
Some updates. Jessica Noz is extending her contract with Spurs. I think this is a great move for both sides, honestly.
Yeah, super young talent coming through. Did well for Spurs this season, helped them get to the FA Cup final, and she's also been called up to the England squad. So I think big things are going to happen for Jess Nars, and Spurs is a good place for her to grow in her career. She might look to leave, in a couple of years' time once she's more mature as a footballer, but this is definitely a good move for her and for Tottenham because Tottenham will really look to build on what they've done this season and be better in the league. I would say more consistent in the league. And compete with somebody like a Liverpool who finished above Man United in the league.
Yeah, this is why I'm happy to see her staying at Tottenham because for a long time, Tottenham have had the ability to be a better club than they have been. And we saw them make strides forward this past year. And I want them to hold on to that and move forward even more. All right. This is PSA to Mike. For those of you listening, Mike edits this podcast. Mike, plug your ears because this is Brighton news that I know you know and you're very disappointed about. 2 things coming out of Brighton. First, Katie Robinson is gone from Brighton, a huge loss for them. TBD on where she'll go. It's rumored perhaps either City or United, but that's obviously just speculatory. And Elizabeth Turland, what a star, top goal scorer on that squad, rumored to be leaving. Of course, again, nothing has been said, but she is out of contract.
Wow, those two, I'll take Turland over Robinson at Man United. That would be my preference. She's a goal scorer. She scored a lot of goals this season. And Katie Robinson's been in and out of the England squad and her form's been a little bit inconsistent. But she is a young player, so I can see that she would kick on a better club. But for me, I'd take Turland if that was the option.
All right, well, speaking of United, there's a lot. I feel like this is the exact same conversation we had a year ago. A bunch of contracts were up at United. We weren't sure who was going to stay. There was a lot of re-signing that needed to happen if they wanted to keep kind of like the stars together and the core of the team together. And once again, United are in this same position. I don't think they handled it well last year. We know who they let go. For example, Alessia Russo. And now, of course, the Mary Earps situation has resurfaced and many, many more. So, Amy, talk to me about what is going on with the United players who are out of contract.
Well, there's no talk about what's happening with these Manchester United players that are out of contract. The Earps situation has gone dead. We haven't been hearing anything. No, and for me that means that she's gone. So I don't think we can say that she's a Manchester United player anymore. I think she's gone because the last we heard on her in the interview she said they were still talking, but I don't believe that she's staying, and it's been going on for too long. The other big one is Lucia Garcia out of contract. Again, what are we doing now? Now Lucia Garcia down to a 2-year. Give her a 2-year deal. She was phenomenal this season in a very average season for Man United. I thought she was the best player, but Nikita Paris had chipped in at the beginning of the season, but she faded off. But Lucia Garcia really came in clutch at the end of the season. And then the others, Nikita Paris, she turned down a really big deal to go to North Carolina Courage so she could play in the cup final for Man United, and she's a free agent. Katie Zellum, the club captain, free agent, and Rachel Williams. Rachel Williams,
That's again, a big list. Those are all the big names.
Huge names. And your leading goal scorers this season, Garcia, Paris, Williams. So who are you bringing in to fill those voids? I mean, Denise O'Sullivan has been talked about, which I would love because I rate Denise O'Sullivan. I think she's a good player. And
Denise O'Sullivan is one of the most underrated players in the world.
Yes.
I rate her highly. Ireland international, plays in the NWSL, has been a staple at the North Carolina Courage.
She's been phenomenal this season as well in the games that I've watched in a team that struggled to be consistent away from home. So I would love for her to come in and play that defensive mid position. She's got tons and tons of energy, bags of energy. She's always all over the pitch and a really quality first touch. So if that comes to fruition, that would be great. But there's little to no talk about what else is going on. And for me, with the new ownership, Ineos, their focus has really been primarily on the men's side, which is also a mess. And they've only just come to the conclusion last week that they're going to keep the manager of the men's side. So I don't know where the women's team falls in priority, and it doesn't seem like it's super high right now. And that's very disappointing and sad because they've won a trophy this season, and it's the first trophy that they've won, besides when they won the trophy to get promoted into WSL. But that doesn't really count. This is a significant trophy. This is an FA Cup. Yeah. This is a big trophy. This is probably, I would say, the second biggest trophy that you can win in England behind the WSL.
I agree.
But if that doesn't say let's invest in this team, then I don't know what else says let's invest in this team.
Well, it's really disappointing too, because on the heels of course, not this past season, but the one before, that was United finished way higher than expected. Mm-hmm. They were in the running for Champions League spot, and they let many people go. This season's been worse. If you have that same type of exodus, you're just going to keep falling down the table. When you had a moment to inject money in and become a club that was really competing with Arsenal, Chelsea at the top, City at the top, and instead you've gone the other direction, and you're just going to keep falling until you get that injection of money.
Yeah, let's not be surprised if Man United don't finish. If Man United finish lower in the table this season, I wouldn't be surprised, unless there's some sort of injection of cash and a plan as to what's going to happen, and a team that Mark Skinner wants. Because it's no good throwing internationals in there if he doesn't want them. Yeah. I think there was some really rushed signings.
That's a huge problem too, is that you have a coach that doesn't like to play international players. You're only going to go so far. What are you going to field the Lioness squad and try to beat everybody? Like, that's not how club football works. You need to have a manager that understands how to play with international players that are outside of England.
Well, yeah, you've got a World Cup winner on your bench. You've got a Japanese international on your bench. You've got a French international on your bench. There's a Brazilian international on your bench, but he can't figure out how to get them into the games and make it work in the system. Yeah. So that's also concerning for me. And the fact that they're going to give him a new contract, or have given him a new contract already, is slightly alarming. But if they're not backing him with players that he wants as well, then it seems like swings and roundabouts at Man United. We're just going around in circles here and not doing anything differently. So don't expect any changes. It's just going to be the same.
Another English phrase for me as we move on back to the NWSL. Swings and roundabouts.
Swings and roundabouts.
And finally, we're going to head back across the pond over to the NWSL for I'm going to call this, it's not an, whatever. We'll call it a new segment. This is our quick hits segment. We're just going to rip through a couple of topics in the NWSL that did not pertain to our game of the week, but of course are so pertinent from this past weekend. And first and foremost, we're going to kick it off with what I'm sure everybody's wondering why we didn't start the show with. There was a goal called not goal in the Angel City game that I think gave us all really PTSD traumatizing flashbacks to the U.S. Women's National Team World Cup exit with VAR. The ball, was it over the line? Was it not over the line? Well, this time VAR determined that the ball was not over the line. It was not called a goal. I'm not going to try to describe what happened because I don't think it's interesting. If you saw it, you saw it. If you didn't, listen. This was, I don't even know what to call it, a shit show at best. And to me, that looked like a goal.
It was a bit of a disaster on VAR's part because the camera angles that they had were not good enough to show whether the goal went in or not. It was just the camera angles confirmed everything that we'd seen. They didn't confirm anything new. So why have them in the first place if they're not going to give us a new angle of things? Okay, you're going to give us the same angle? Great. No, have cameras that give different angles. This is the whole point of VAR.
Yeah, or goal line technology.
Goal line technology is easy to install, especially in the stadiums that they're using for the men's games. They should already have goal line technology in the MLS. I don't know if they use it or not because I don't watch the MLS, but if it is there and the technology is available, then the NWSL should definitely be using it. There's no reason why not, because it's so cut and dry. It's the best technology there is. It doesn't fail. It's like 99.999% accurate.
Except, point for that 0.00001 that we saw in the World Cup.
That was not over the line. You need to get over it. I'm going to say one more thing before we move off of this one real quick. Jane Campbell deserved the luck if she got the luck because she was unreal. She stood on her head in this game.
Yeah, that's
the
true.
saves she made were incredible. The penalty, granted, it wasn't a well-hit penalty, but she saved a penalty. And then a save she came up with from point-blank range to keep it at 0-0 was super impressive. So she deserved the luck that she got with this one.
All right, moving along. Amy wants to talk about Gotham.
For a second.
For a second.
Okay, so I want to talk about Ella Stevens, but I also want to talk about Gotham beginning to tick. And we talked about this last week, but I think that they're someone who can challenge Casey and Orlando seriously now. We're seeing it, the way they're playing. I feel good about them for the first time in probably the whole time I've supported them. I feel good about them. And even though they won the championship last year, it wasn't a season that we could all be proud of from Gotham's perspective. They finished the lowest and they somehow won it. But I think that he's figuring things out, and the squad looks good and scary. And he also rotated this weekend, and Stengel got some minutes, and Yasmin Ryan came up big. And then we're going to talk about Ella Stevens because Ella Stevens is on fire.
Yeah.
Fire.
If you don't know that name, now you do. And she's made a name for herself this year for sure.
The second goal was a thing of beauty. It was a volley with supreme technique, kept it down, put it into the far corner. And if you haven't seen it, go watch it because it is worth a watch. It is worth more than one watch. It is worth a couple of watches for sure. So big props to Ella Stevens coming in and being the name that everyone's talking about rather than all of the US national team players that we signed this season.
Yeah, huge. Ella Stevens, 26 years old. She spent 3 seasons, I believe, with the Chicago Red Stars before coming over to Gotham FC this past year. And she is clearly thriving. And Juan Carlos doing what he does best. Like you said, rotating players. Gotham have won 4 out of their last 5 games. They did not drop that 5th one. They just drew 1-1. So they truly are rolling. I was at the Bay FC game. Bay FC versus Utah Royals. Expansion team versus expansion team. That's always fun. That was the first time those two teams faced each other. That happened Sunday night. It was, frankly, Bay FC's season in a nutshell. In that was a very winnable game for them. They completely dominated play in the first half. I said at halftime, I hope Bay are not going to regret coming in scoreless at half when they fully dominated that first half. And they lived to regret the day. Utah won 1-0. And listen,
smash and grab.
Yeah, credit where
smash and grab.
They came into that second half. They got that goal, and they did not let up. And for Utah, we talked about them last week. It's been a tough role. They've played better than the record indicates, but it's still tough to consistently be coming out with losses. Even if you are playing well, it gets hard to see that silver lining. So good on Utah. Both of these teams weirdly certain similar ways having really similar years in that capacity where they are a lot better, I would say, than either of their records indicate.
Rachel Kundananji needs a goal desperately.
Oh, yeah.
That miss was... She really would want that back. Like, it was... You can't miss. It's an open goal. You just have to put it in the goal. It's... Oshuala missed the first chance and he thought, just bang it in. Yeah, she needs a goal desperately. And for Utah, you could see how much it meant to them. The whole bench went crazy when they scored. Amy Rodriguez was, smiling from ear to ear. So
yeah,
I'm happy for Utah that they got that win. But obviously, like you said, Bay FC needed to take their chances and they rued those misses.
I'll also add on as a final point, it was Pride Night there. And in the press conference, Emily Mingus, who is the captain now for Bay FC, doing a great job captaining at center back, was speaking about Pride Night, and I did specifically ask her about it too, but she said something really cool where she said that one of the rookies was really excited to play in that game because she'd never gotten to play in a Pride Night with Pride jerseys. And Emily was basically saying it kind of struck her because it's so normal to her that she didn't really even think about it, and that's actually really, she feels very lucky to play in a league where it does feel normal like that. And that, I think that's just, it's heartwarming. It needs to be said because especially in this climate where there are leagues in this country that are literally eliminating Pride Night because they think it's controversial, to have a league that it's just so normalized that that's just what they do, that Emily Mingus was like, yeah, honestly, I didn't even think about it. But that's a positive thing. It's really nice. All right, finally, let's talk about the Washington Spirit because we've mentioned the two undefeated teams, but for some reason, poor Washington Spirit, who sit just 1 point below Kansas City and Orlando. That's right, just 1 point. They've actually got one more win in their record than either of those undefeated teams in Kansas City, Orlando. But for some reason, nobody, including us, are really talking about Washington Spirit. And it's probably because there are two undefeated teams sitting in front of them. But I would like to. Perhaps we'll do that next week. But I feel like there's a lot that needs to be said. And mainly it's about their rookie, who certainly will get Rookie of the Year.
Yeah, Corey Bethune. She's been unreal.
Yeah,
she's been very good this season, scoring goals when it mattered. And as a rookie coming in, we've seen that there's some rookies, on Utah's team, and they haven't really hit the ground running as much. But Utah is a new team, so we're cutting them some slack because Washington is an established team. And she has a lot of experienced players around her who've been there, done that. She's got Trin Rodman and she's got Ashley Hatch. And those players are senior pros who can guide her through games. And she seems to be having fun and enjoying playing football. And I think she scored this weekend.
Yep.
And that saved them, obviously. Gave them a point. And I think that, you're right. They're just like bubbling under the radar and we're not talking about them. And I don't know. I don't necessarily enjoy watching Washington play that much. Maybe that's why. But yeah, obviously I haven't talked about them at all. And I don't know why we're not talking about them. Probably because of the two undefeated teams that are more fun to watch. But that could be it, right?
Perhaps next week we'll have to get into it because Washington Spirit next week is taking on Gotham FC.
Let's go.
All right, that is it for us here at the Women's Soccer Show. As a reminder, head over to the Patreon. We've got U.S. Women's National Team roster predictions dropping this week, as well as a full-on encompassing beginning of diving into the groups, just like we did in the World Cup. We're going to talk about the groups in the Olympics, and we are very excited about it. So head on over there. And that is it for us here. We'll see you next Wednesday. I've been Sarah.
I've been Amy.
Thanks, everybody.
This podcast was edited by Monkey Hill Media. Visit monkeyhillmedia.com for more information.